The story opens in a haze of panic and silence. The camera lingers on Claire, sitting on the cold kitchen floor, her hands trembling, streaked with blood that won't seem to wash away. Across from her, Ethan shakes uncontrollably, eyes wide with shock, whispering, "I didn't mean to. It just happened." The only sound is the faint hum of sirens in the distance, growing louder with every heartbeat. Claire's mind races, flashes of what just occurred, fragments of fear and confusion, and the dawning realization that her life has just splintered into a before and after. Her inner voice breaks through the chaos, raw and remorseful. If I hadn't helped him that night, maybe none of this would have happened. The words hang heavy, revealing a secret already too deep to undo. The viewer is thrust into emotional chaos, gripped by the unbearable mix of love, guilt, and terror that defines Claire's world. Then, the story cuts to hours earlier. A seemingly ordinary afternoon turned sour by unspoken resentment. Daniel, her husband, moves through the house with cold precision, his tone clipped, his affection absent. Ethan avoids her gaze, his every look laced with blame for a tragedy she never caused but still carries. That evening's dinner is a battlefield of silence, each clink of cutlery sharper than words. Claire tries to bridge the gap, but both father and son remain distant, trapped in their own bitterness. When night falls, the quiet feels menacing, the calm before something catastrophic. Then, the flash-forward returns. Red and blue lights sweep through the windows, painting the kitchen walls in panic. Claire turns to Ethan, her voice breaking as she whispers, "No one can ever know what happened tonight." It's not just a plea. It's a vow that will define everything that follows. Claire had entered her marriage to Daniel with fragile hope, a hope that love, even the second time around, could mend the fractures of her past. 3 years later, that hope feels threadbare. Once a cheerful art teacher, she has molded herself into the role Daniel expected. Calm, accommodating, endlessly patient. He's a respected surgeon, admired by everyone for his charm and composure. But behind closed doors, his words cut with surgical precision. He corrects her softly, criticizes her subtly, and controls the smallest details, from her wardrobe to the credit card limits. Each quiet humiliation chips away at her self-worth. Her stepson Ethan, 17, is the other shadow in the house. Brilliant, volatile, and unreachable. Since his mother's death, he's been spiraling, skipping classes and drowning his grief in alcohol and reckless defiance. Claire tries in small, desperate ways to reach him, packing his breakfast, showing up at his soccer games, leaving notes of encouragement he never acknowledges. But he meets her kindness with walls of resentment. Daniel dismisses Ethan's behavior as typical teenage rebellion, blaming Claire's softness for making things worse. Between them, Claire feels invisible, caught between a husband who silences her and a boy who rejects her. One evening, while sorting laundry, Claire notices faint bruises along Ethan's forearm. When she gently asks about them, he jerks away, eyes blazing. "You wouldn't understand," he spits. "You're not my mom." The words sting more than she expects, leaving her standing alone in the doorway as he storms off. That night at dinner, Daniel chats about a hospital gala while Ethan pushes food around his plate in silence. Claire watches the flicker of tension between father and son, the unspoken anger, the undercurrent of pain, and feels a chill settle over her. Something inside this perfect home is about to crack. The crash jolts Claire awake, her heart pounding in the stillness of the night. She hurries downstairs, every step echoing through the silent house. In the dim kitchen light, Ethan stands by the back door, shaking, his knuckles split and raw, a smear of blood on his sleeve. His eyes dart wildly, haunted by something unspeakable. "I had to stop him," he mutters, voice trembling. Claire grips his shoulders, trying to steady him, but he flinches as if touched by fire. Between broken breaths, fragments spill out. A fight, a scream, the name Bradley. Daniel's closest friend? Something terrible has happened. Ethan's story tumbles out in gasps. Bradley had cornered his girlfriend Lila at a party, his hands where they shouldn't have been. Ethan says he confronted him, that it got violent. that he only meant to protect her. But his words stumble, timelines blur, and Claire's pulse quickens with dread. If this is true, if anyone finds out, Daniel's reputation will crumble, and Ethan could lose everything. Claire's instincts scream to call the police, but fear takes over. She sees in Ethan's shaking hands not defiance, but desperation. Against reason, against everything she's been taught, she decides to protect him. In the quiet chaos that follows, Claire moves like someone else, burning Ethan's bloody hoodie, scrubbing the car door clean under the flicker of the porch light. The smell of smoke clings to her skin. When she kneels beside Ethan to clean his hands, he whispers, "You're the first person who's ever believed me." The words break something inside her, the longing to be trusted, to matter. They sit in silence, thinking it's over. But at dawn, the world shatters again. The news flashes across the TV. Bradley Thompson found dead in his driveway last night. Claire's breath catches. The night she tried to protect Ethan has just turned into a nightmare. The morning after Bradley's death, the house becomes a stage for panic disguised as composure. Police officers arrive polite but probing, their questions sharp as scalpels. Daniel's fury ignites when he learns Ethan was out that night, his voice low, venomous. "You've ruined everything," he hisses, meaning his career more than his friend's death. Claire steps forward, her pulse roaring in her ears, and lies. "Ethan was home with me." The words fall heavy between them, sealing her fate. Daniel's cold stare lingers a second too long, suspicion sparking behind his perfect facade. The first crack between husband and wife has appeared. As the investigation intensifies, so does the silence in their home. Lila vanishes, her phone disconnected, her apartment empty, and the uncertainty gnaws at Claire's sanity. Ethan becomes volatile, slipping between guilt and anger, avoiding her eyes, avoiding food. Daniel's temper grows sharper, his control suffocating. He threatens to send Ethan to military school, to make a man out of him, while secretly tracking Claire's phone, her purchases, even her car. Every corner of her life tightens into a cage. What once looked like protection now feels like surveillance, and Claire can barely breathe under the weight of secrets. Then, the anonymous messages begin. Grainy photos of her in the backyard, flames licking the edges of a burned hoodie, proof that someone knows what she did. Panic coils in her chest as she realizes the walls are closing in, and the perfect life she tried to hold together is crumbling from within. One night, she finds Ethan sitting in the dark, eyes hollow. His voice is barely a whisper, trembling but certain. "He's lying to you, Claire. My dad's not who you think he is." The words chill her blood. The man she's protecting may not be her husband's victim, but his accomplice. Claire's hands tremble as she scrolls through Daniel's phone, her breath catching with every message she uncovers. Texts between Daniel and Bradley paint a horrifying truth. They both knew about Lila, about the threats, about the assaults hushed to protect the hospital's pristine image. Daniel hadn't been blindsided by Bradley's death. He had been complicit in his crimes. The night Ethan confronted Bradley, Daniel was already on his way to silence the chaos before it spread. Claire's stomach twists as the timeline unravels. Daniel arrived at the scene first, and Bradley was still alive. Her heart stops. Ethan didn't kill him. Daniel did. When Claire confronts him, Daniel's mask shatters. His voice turns venomous, calm and cruel in the same breath. He sneers that she's naive, that she never truly understood what power demands. "I did what I had to do," he hisses, pacing like a predator. The knock at the door, the police with a warrant, sends him spiraling. Without hesitation, he points at Claire, claiming she helped cover the crime. The betrayal lands like a blade, cutting through every illusion of safety. In the chaos, the pieces fall together. His manipulation, his control, even the mystery surrounding his first wife's accidental death. None of it was coincidence. Ethan, hidden in the hallway, hears everything. When Daniel snarls that he married Claire to salvage his image after the first scandal, Ethan steps into the light, his voice breaking. "You're done." For the first time, he calls Claire Mom, the word trembling but powerful. As police drag Daniel away, not yet for Bradley's murder, but for obstruction and fraud, Claire stands frozen, torn between relief and horror. The man she protected, the life she built around him was all a lie. Yet, in the wreckage, a fragile truth remains. She and Ethan still have each other. Months later, the world feels slower, gentler. Claire and Ethan settle in a small coastal town where the air smells of salt and renewal. The ocean's rhythm becomes their quiet therapy, the endless horizon a promise of peace. Claire accepts a position teaching art therapy at a community center for troubled teens. Young people who carry pain behind their eyes, just as Ethan once did. Through her work, she begins to understand healing not as erasure but transformation. Ethan, still scarred but freer, starts attending sessions too, painting what words can't express. Their bond deepens, built now on truth rather than fear. One afternoon, a letter arrives, the familiar seal of Daniel's lawyer dark against the envelope. Claire opens it on the beach, waves brushing the sand around her feet. Inside is Daniel's written confession, an admission of his crimes, a plea bargain that exonerates Ethan completely. Her hands tremble as she reads, the wind catching her tears before they fall. Relief mixes with sorrow, the ache of years spent chained to lies. She realizes Daniel's power over her was never just in his cruelty, but in her silence, in the love she mistook for safety, the obedience she confused with devotion as the sun dips low. Claire folds the letter and lets the tide take the edge of the paper, watching it darken with seawater before pulling it back. She feels something inside her finally loosen, not forgiveness, but release. Saving Ethan that night wasn't her sin. Staying under Daniel's control was. She turns toward the shoreline where Ethan waits, his hand raised in quiet trust. "Come on, Mom," he calls. She smiles, soft, certain, and walks toward him. This time love doesn't hurt. This time it's hers. Year later, the sky is a clear, endless blue, the kind of day that feels like a promise. Claire sits among rows of proud parents as Ethan takes the stage in his graduation gown, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Sometimes," he says, looking right at her, "the people who save us aren't the ones who share our blood, but the ones who refuse to give up on us." His words hang in the air like sunlight after rain, a quiet acknowledgement of everything they've survived. Claire feels tears gather, not from sorrow, but from an overwhelming sense of peace. After the ceremony, when the crowd begins to scatter, Ethan finds her beneath an old oak tree near the school gate. He hands her a folded drawing, pencil lines soft but powerful. It's the two of them from that terrible night, drenched in rain, faces marked with fear, but holding hands tightly, unbroken. "You didn't ruin my life that night," he says quietly, voice trembling with truth. "You saved it." Claire looks at the drawing, her heart both breaking and mending at once. For the first time, she believes him completely. As they walk toward the parking lot, sunlight filters through the trees, turning everything golden. The camera pulls back, Claire standing still for a moment, looking toward the horizon, her face calm and strong. The ghosts of her past, Daniel's shadow, guilt and silence, fade with the light. Ethan calls to her, laughter in his voice, and she turns, stepping into the brightness. Her voice lingers as the final line echoes. "I thought that night destroyed everything. But maybe it was the first time I finally did the right thing."